At some point in our careers, many of us realize we're doing exactly what's expected of us, and yet something still feels off. Welcome, or hopefully welcome back to the Reluctant Entrepreneur Podcast. This is the podcast where we explore the real stories behind starting and running a business, not necessarily from people who always planned to be entrepreneurs, but sometimes from those who felt compelled to build something because the existing system just wasn't working. My guest today is Dr. Christiane Schroeter. She began her career in academia as a marketing professor, surrounded by well-structured assignments, strong theories, and students who were doing everything right, at least on paper. But over time, she began to see a gap between performance and real learning, between checking boxes and creating meaningful growth. That realization led her beyond the classroom and into entrepreneurship, where she built Petite Practice, a framework focused on personal and professional growth through small, intentional actions. As with every episode, we'll break this conversation into two parts. First, we'll talk about Dr. Schroeter's entrepreneurial journey, the moment things shifted, the challenges she's faced leaving a familiar environment, and the wins that confirmed that she was on the right path. Then, on the second half, we'll draw on her experience and talk about how leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals can apply these ideas to create sustainable growth without burnout. So, if you've ever felt successful on the surface but disconnected underneath, this episode will resonate. My conversation with Christiane Schroeter begins right now. Stick around. Christiane, thanks for coming back. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Audience, this is going to be a nice jam-packed one with tips and tricks, so stay tuned.
Stay tuned. There's the hook right there. I don't have to write a hook. My guest provides the hook. And when I say welcome, thanks for coming back. My guest, don't worry, you didn't miss anything. We did a pre-interview several weeks ago, and here we are, the big finale right here. So, Christiane, thank you so much for being my guest. I really appreciate you being here, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. You shared that moment when you looked around your office and surrounded by flawless and lifeless marketing plans, and realized something had to change. What was going through your mind at that point?
Oh, brilliant. And that's actually the opening line to my TEDx talk. So, audience, if you didn't see my TEDx talk, that's really how I get started.
And I will put a link, for my audience's sake, I will put a link to your TEDx talk. I watched it. It was amazing. You're a bit of my hero, because one of my bucket list goals is to give a TEDx or a TED Talk, stand on that red dot. But anyway, I digress. Look down if you're watching this on YouTube, and if you're on your favorite podcast app, look at your podcast app, and there will be links to that and much more information. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Proceed.
No, this is perfect because I appreciate that you were sharing it's your big goal, because in essence, what I experienced in that moment was one of my big goals was always to be an entrepreneur. I teach innovation entrepreneurship, and when the students learn from me, what better motivation would there be than actually being an entrepreneur myself? So looking at these papers, I didn't quite get the feeling that these students wanted to be entrepreneurs. I think they just wanted to turn in an assignment and call it good.
Check.
When
Yeah, they would.
reality,
Yeah.
when reality, if you think of all the experiences that you have in college and the classes that you take, the people that you meet, the professors that you learn from, but more importantly, how you learn who you are yourself. I was kind of feeling I'm not instilling that in the students themselves. I didn't think that what I was teaching them is to align their unique value with who they could really be in this world. I wasn't teaching life skills. I was just going through academia skills. And if you loved college, then you will really appreciate it. But if you didn't love college, you will also appreciate it that sometimes we just kind of feel like we're so set in our routines that I felt, gosh, like, I mean, something's got to change here, right? And that's really what went through my mind back then.
Yeah. Was there a single defining moment when you decided to turn your academic insights into something entrepreneurial? You mentioned that you kind of always wanted to do something in the entrepreneur world, or was it like a strike of lightning moment, or was it a gradual realization that you can make a bigger impact beyond just the classroom?
Oh, I love that question, because the bigger impact is really what comes it down. So let's maybe just go right back to, if we think about how technology has evolved, how we as a society have evolved, but also, of course, humans in terms of the attention span, etc. And there's so much in innovation entrepreneurship that shows just that. So if you think a little bit of like, we are much more used to now meeting people virtually than we were, say, 10 years ago, right?
Sure.
And we're also much more used to learning in small bites, which is the essence of my Petite Practice. So could I have done this maybe 20 years ago when I started my academic journey? No. But I realized that over time, students were kind of looking a little bit as the classroom as like an experience. Like you go to Disney and you want to experience the joy of Disney and you don't want to just go on rides and all this
Right.
because you could go to any theme park and go on a
Sure.
ride.
Sure.
It's the whole package.
It's the
And I
experience.
was
Yes.
experience. And I was feeling like, I don't think I'm actually giving them the experience of being an entrepreneur without sharing with them what it really takes. And at that point, it kind of all came together. So I thought, well, I mean, I could start simply all these social media posts I've been creating. I had no problem keeping on creating social media posts. But could I maybe accumulate all these fantastic insights into a book? So it's more of a collection than just a random strew of social media posts. And maybe I could also record them into voice messages like my podcast. And that already in itself then is more of something that lives for eternity than
Sure.
social media that eventually maybe it goes away, or I don't know, maybe Instagram becomes
Well,
something different.
I don't know. We can
But
still
what
look at
that's something.
we can still look at drawings carved into a cave, from the prehistoric days. So the communication does tend to last, right? Whether it's on stone tablets or cave walls or digital, we just transfer it to the next medium. Let me ask you, Christiana, I wasn't planning on asking you this, but because you were in academia and you taught innovations, entrepreneurship, every year I speak to engineering students at Dartmouth College on the subject of my journey. So on the subject of entrepreneurship, business, marketing, things like that. And in fact, I was just there a couple months ago taking part in one of their Jones seminars, where they invite speakers to talk to the students. And as part of that gig, I'm also the innovations course, the engineering innovations course, also produces kind of a Shark Tank deal where it's virtual, but we have judges. I'm one of the judges, and they basically, do an elevator pitch. They show some pro formas. They treat us like we're potential investors, and it's practice for them. And I've I've done that now for 8 years, and I am impressed with a minority of the students and frustrated with the majority of the students, not because of their idea, not at all, not because of their passion, not at all. But when I ask them, what's your goal? 80% of the time, the goal is all about the exit strategy. It's about seed rounds, VC, IPO, cash out. And I think what's lost in many potential entrepreneurs' vision is the passion for the product. And, they're thinking about stuff that is relevant a million years from now, relatively speaking. It's like, to me, if you don't have passion for the product, if you're in it only for the end game, then as we hit the obstacles and the trauma and drama and challenges and how hard business can be, if we don't have that basic rooted passion for the product, the love of the product, like a child almost, I think we don't have enough stamina and perseverance to go. We'll just say, I'll find another way to make money. You don't look at a child and go, I don't like this child. I'll just have another one, right? But you can do that when you're not personally vested in it. And so I am super impressed when I meet young students who have some entrepreneurial desires and they're just overwhelmingly impassioned by their idea. That tells me they've got a better chance of success than those who are just in it for the money. What's your take on that? That was a long question, but what's your take on? Did you see the same thing, or do you have the same reaction when people think entrepreneurship is all about the money and the exit and the lifestyle versus the actual down in the trenches hard work and passion for a product or a service?
Oh, and actually, this is a perfect thing for the audience as well now. So I still work in academia. I still am a full-time professor. So if you sometimes think, oh, I'm going to start this thing over here just because I didn't like what I was doing before, that
Right.
was
No, I
never
don't
really
think.
on my
Yeah,
mind.
I didn't get
Yeah.
that impression at all.
Yeah. So like it's the same thing in entrepreneurship. If you think of starting a company with the goal of eventually selling it and to retire early, I think that customers, first of all, will pick up on this. But secondly, it reminds me a little bit of how I shifted my teaching in the classroom. If I were to tell the students at the beginning of the class, look, I'm going to be here from this date to this date, and then after that, I'm going to say goodbye and you're going to do your thing. That's kind of a sad experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Sure.
it's like, okay. So
See
wouldn't
ya.
you wouldn't you think that the best entrepreneurs are the ones that create lifelong memories, right? We talked about Disney earlier, and I just brought it up because they are just the number one in customer service. They
Mhm.
don't want to say goodbye to people that leave their park and don't ever want to be in touch again. So, in a certain way, when a student comes to my classroom, I hope that they keep me updated on their journey. And I hope that they share with me if they have any issues or any wins or anything like that. So if you create a product in a certain way, I want that the product is your story and that story lives and it doesn't die. Because if you give it to somebody else, it becomes their story, but it's not the same because the
Right.
product is really like it
It's
really was built because you needed this.
almost
And
like an
while there might be
author.
others,
It's like an author publishing a book with a ghostwriter. It's a ghostwriter, right? As opposed
yeah,
to the original author, the original spirit of the intent of the product, the service, or whatever the
yeah.
case may be. I mean, there's nothing wrong with selling a business. Certainly nothing wrong with buying a business. I just think, particularly in the early days, the chances of success are greater when there is a deep commitment and passion for the purpose of the company. And that purpose should be something a little bit higher octave than make me a millionaire or billionaire or trillionaire, whatever the case may be. What were some of the early challenges you faced bringing Petite Practice to life? Did you ever question whether leaving the academic comfort zone, if there was a comfort zone there, was the right move? No, you didn't actually leave. Let me
Yeah.
rephrase that a little bit because you didn't
Yeah.
actually leave academia, but you added
Got it. Got
entrepreneurial.
it.
So clearly,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're in two
Yeah.
worlds now. Was that a difficult decision? Was it scary? You know that's one part of the question. The other part of the question is what kind of challenges did you face in that transition in going into entrepreneurship and building your own practice?
I think it's a really beautiful question and probably resonates with a lot of the entrepreneurs out there because you sometimes worry less about whether your idea is feasible. You're more worry about what others will think about the idea, right? And what are they going to say when you announce to them publicly that you're going to be a TEDx speaker, or that you're going to be an author, or that you're going to be a podcast host? Now, I can tell you one thing, Mike. I actually never worried about that. Maybe it was just something that came with being a fully tenured professor, or being an international female that came here from Germany, not worrying about what people think about me. It was something that I just kind of switched that part of my brain off as much as I could, right? Not that it wasn't there on some days.
Yeah.
And I thought, and this is my big question in my life that I ask myself all the time. And entrepreneurs, this is important. What's there to lose, right? What's there to lose? What's there to lose to start a podcast, or writing a book, or going on a TEDx stage? Really nothing. It's only a game. So if you feel that the benefit of sharing your message with others will maybe move some people's life that listen to it, that watch it, that are there in the audience, that feel it, it's only gain. So there's
Yeah.
nothing to lose.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that
And
philosophy.
that's what went from the
I,
F1 movie.
I adopted a similar philosophy. It was taught to me, and it didn't come naturally. It was counterintuitive. It was uncomfortable. But to your point, like, what's there to lose? My mantra was make peace with the worst, which is, what's there to lose? And, you know, I'm scared to make this decision. Well, if you make the wrong decision, will you die? Well, no, that's extreme. It's not going to kill me. Okay. Will it instantly kill your business? Well, no, it could set us back. Okay. What's the worst that can happen? And, well, it'll set us back. It'll cost us money. I'll be personally embarrassed. Okay. Make peace with that. And it's a mindset game. It's like, your what's the worst that can happen? I think once we're not afraid of the consequences, the actual chances of success improve, because we're going into it. We're not going into it with 1 foot already half out the door. We're not going into it with a parachute on our back. We're going into it like, let's just do this and throw everything into it. And if we're wrong, we're wrong. We recalibrate, we adjust, we re-aim, and then we fire again, right? So, but I do think that fear is a paralyzing agent. And many businesses fail. Mine almost did many times. Basically, the root cause, and there was many causes, but the root cause was really fear-based decisions, either making the wrong decisions based on fear, or even worse, not making any decision based on fear. And I think overcoming that fear by having your attitude, Christiana, which is, what's the worst that can happen? So what? Okay, your podcast bombs. Okay, every podcast bombs at first. Yours bombed sooner. Great. Fail fast, move on, right? And that, to me, that's what a good entrepreneur will do once they get that confidence to do that. Every entrepreneur faces, highs and lows. We've all gone through. Talk about Disneyland rides. We're kind of the Matterhorn of business. Can you share maybe one of the low points and one of the high points in your entrepreneurial journey? And on the low point side, how did you find your way through it?
Brilliant question. And I want to go back to the Petite
Please.
Practice,
Yeah.
which is in essence just a petite French for small,
Yeah.
and practice for taking small steps. So one of the challenges in my business, of course, was just earlier this year in 2025, January, when I decided I'm going to file a trademark for my Petite Practice. And that means hiring a lawyer, going through the paperwork, and becoming official. So I could very well fail with this. In a year, I could be like, what in the world was I thinking? And filing a trademark for this, spending all this money and going all out. It's not like it necessarily is important as a professor to have a trademark. But then think about this, audience. If you're an entrepreneur, how important is a trademark? This is like your brand. It's like as if you name a child after birth.
Yeah.
Right? You're basically having a concept and the concept is uniquely associated with you. And isn't that something we all want? So I went ahead and I didn't think very much about it. I was like, I'm just going to do this, so whatever. Worst case, I was lost a bunch of money with a lawyer, but I just went ahead. And then in March, decided to publish a couple of books. And Amazon really kept pushing back on one of the books having the Petite Practice in the title. Because keep in mind, it's my trademark. But
Ah,
at the same time, they
yeah.
saw that it was filed. They just didn't know that it was filed under my name.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
have to really be honest, audience, if you publish your books on Amazon, it's not like you just upload your books and they're like, we're so glad you are here. It's not like that. I mean, they do really scrutinize every single
Yeah.
piece of content.
Yeah.
And you have to be very, very, very clear and very much. It cannot just be some AI generated gibberish. I mean, this has to be really
Yeah.
actually your work, right?
And I'll give Amazon credit. I also published a book on Amazon, and I came to that same conclusion. And I looked at it quite positively, as you are. They are protecting the reader from unscrupulous authors, right? So there are what might appear to a new author, like I was a new author. It's the first book I've ever published. And my first glance at all those rules were, oh my God, I'm their customer. No, I'm not their customer. I'm their partner in the acquisition of their customer. And, I'm like a vendor, really, not a customer. And they're buying something from me, in essence, and making money on it. Now, actually, I'm the one making money on it, and they're the ones selling it. But it's the same kind of principle. I'm a component in their machine. But yeah, they do have quite a few rules, and one of them, I remember that, is they don't want trademarks in a title. And I think that is a move to actually, that's a CYA move for them, because they don't want to get hit with a trademark infringement lawsuit, because they all of a sudden, they put, enjoy Coca-Cola or whatever the trademark is, or where's the beef, or, whatever the trademark is, and then they get sued. But it definitely helps protect the reader. It makes sure that their work is closer to authentic as it could be, and validated, and all of that. I did the paperback, the Kindle, and the audiobook. And the audiobook, that's a tough one, because I produced it all myself because I have a studio. But they get right down to the amount of gain, all the technical, audiology stuff that an audio engineer would know. I had to, get taught by, 12-year-old kids on YouTube, how to set all these levels, and because they were very strict on that. Anyway, I digress. I fell down a technical rabbit hole there.
No, it's
You were
completely
saying,
true. And I love that you're bringing it up because at the end, so I could have just said, yeah, whatever, my books, I'm just not going to go ahead and put Petite Practice in the title. Then, audience, right? Let's think about this. So in January, you're filing a trademark, you're paying a lawyer for this. And then you come into March and you're going to publish books with a trademark that you filed for. Technically speaking, as soon as you file the trademark, you can already add the little TM because it's
mm-hmm,
submitted
mm-hmm,
for review to the word that you filed your trademark for. So I sat there and I thought, well, I could just say, I'm just going to name this book differently. So this is called Petite Practice Planner, right? I'm a German. I love planning, and Petite Practice really lends itself to planning. I could have just said, let's just call it something different, like your daily planner or blah, blah. And I was like, well, that's so lame. And if there's one thing that's, absolutely not true about me, I am not lame. So I was
love it.
like, well, not going to give up. So I went back and forth with Amazon many, many times, and I won. My book is now called Petite Practice Planner because I just produced the evidence that I am in charge of that trademark
Yeah.
and that I, in fact, wrote the book and that it is a planner that helps you with small steps create a structure in your day, in your week, in your month that will lead to big impact. Because at the end of the day, that's really what entrepreneurs need. They need structure, just like if you have children, parents out there, children need structure, right? And that's in essence really what it came down to. I was like, I have a structure. I know how to operate within my structure. So I want that word. And I got it. So that was in a certain way really what every good entrepreneur needs to understand. We can all fail, but keep in mind your fail is just your first attempt in learning. That was my first attempt in understanding, okay, now we are really getting serious. Like if
Yeah,
it's my trademark, I better have all that stuff ready and submitted with it because otherwise this was some person that claims to be me. And this is a very good check mark that I don't want that this would happen in the future. That's why I filed the trademark, right? Yep.
absolutely. Well, you're clearly comfortable with publishing because I'm looking on your website right now and I'm seeing 3 books here. I'm seeing the Petite Practice Planner, as we just talked about.
Mhm.
I'm seeing Discover Your Superpower, and I'm seeing How to Master Your Goals. Is there more to the
Mhm.
Christiana Book Club? All back there.
Yep.
There we go.
That's right there. There's a fourth book I just published, actually about 10 days ago now, on National Cookie Day. I published my Step Into Your Voice book, and that has been doing really well
On
because a
National
lot of
Cookie Day.
National Cookie Day. Yeah, because I felt that has been just like my trademark of Petite Practice has become something I'm very known for, making chocolate chip cookies for my students. When I looked at the calendar, what a good day for publication would be, I was like, oh, National Cookie Day, that's the good day. Yeah.
Love baking cookies. That's one of my like therapies. I'll bake, and it's chocolate chip cookies, and all my friends rave about it. But at the end of the day, I just read the recipe off the Toll House, morsel packet, the yellow packages. I don't make any changes. Sometimes I do change one thing. I'll substitute half of the butter for shortening,
Oh,
and
that's good.
it makes it cakier, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Fluffier.
yeah.
All it does is doesn't change the taste at all. It changes the texture of the cookie.
I like
But so that's free to use, not trademarked, not patented. That's free to use. So Petite Practice centers on the power of small intentional actions. Why do you think small steps are often more powerful than sweeping changes?
because you can take them consistently. We're all busy people. But if you tell me that you don't have 15 minutes, I tell you that you have a much bigger problem in your life because I know you have 15 minutes. We are all busy. And I know that at the end of the day, you have 15 minutes somewhere that you spend in your day that we're not moving the needle in your business. So I want that you take those 15 minutes and those are dedicated towards your petite practice. Now, keep in mind, because I'm a productive person, right? It doesn't always have to be even necessary that you spend the 15 minutes on business related activities. In fact, I actually call myself a leadership strategist with the goal that all good leaders are very much aware about their own boundaries and what they need to remain good leaders. They might actually need some time for themselves, like reading a good book or going for a walk, or maybe just taking a 15-minute break and looking at something different than their laptop screen. So the 15 minutes is there to build your business from a very intentional and purposeful place. And again, it could be that you are just taking a piece of paper or your notebook and making a plan for what is it that you're going to accomplish for the rest of the day or next week or the next month. So this is really something that we frequently are just feeling, oh, if I just spend one more hour, but then again, I don't have that hour, right? It's not absolute that 15 minutes are really, something you don't have time for. Because if you build it consistently, speaking about that hour, you just need to spend 4 days and building up to that hour. And then here we go. There you're right there. So the petite practice are really just small steps to create big impact over time consistently.
Yeah, I like that. Baby steps. You teach something that you call the STEP system:
Mhm.
simplify, tell, examine, and praise.
Yeah.
Can you walk me through what that looks like in practice, especially for busy professionals and entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So, and that's also in my step book audience. If you're watching, you see the book behind me. It has the cover of a lock and a key, right? So, step and petite practice are directly related. So, petite practice is the method, and step is the tool, just like the lock and the key, right? If you think about it yourself, frequently, starting with the S, we tend to overcomplicate things. And many times we lose customers because it's not clear enough what you're really offering. It comes down to the fact that nobody wants to listen to like a 10-minute elevator pitch. How about 90 seconds?
Mm.
If you can't wedge your message into 90 seconds and you're just not clear enough, you just need to get rid of some of the fluff, right?
Yeah.
And make it much more strategic. What are you really offering in terms of your unique, your number one value? So that's simplified for the S. Secondly, you have to tell somebody. So speaking of elevator pitches, they're really only working if there's somebody else in the elevator with you. I mean, sure, you can talk to you all yourself, standing in the elevator and blabbling yourself. I frequently talk to myself too. There's nothing wrong with that, especially if it's like, positive messages and not beating
Yeah.
myself up about something. Do that too,
Affirmations.
please.
Yeah.
Affirmations. Oh, how can I do something? Yes, you got this, Christiane, right? But you have to tell others. So once you create an elevator pitch, it doesn't really do you any good if it just lives on your computer. Actually, symbolically, really think it's an elevator pitch, and you could share them with somebody because it is only 90 seconds long. Whether that's at a party or at some meetup or in Zoom, who knows what. And then you have to examine things. So you're simplifying, you're telling, and now you E for examining what we just talked about. Even if you just spend 15 minutes per day examining what worked, what felt good, and what maybe you want to continue doing, that's kind of important because you don't want to keep doing things that are not working. That's like insanity. You don't want that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's in general always so strategic to kind of like, that one really wasn't so great. And then you just let that one be. And the other stuff, you're like, that was really good. Perfect. Right? I mean, that's what children do too. They build Lego blocks on each other and like, well, that didn't work. That didn't fit. That was a two piece. That didn't go on there. They're not going to constantly keep trying. They're actually trying a different block. They're like, I have other blocks. Oh, let's try this one. That's how we are, right? And then lastly, of course, the praise progress. That's kind of like when you give yourself that high five moment, that manifestation, when you maybe like calling your friend's husband, posting it to social media, maybe, I don't know what, tell your job. I really couldn't care less, but you're praising the progress. And that one will build momentum to keep going with your step process.
You often say that failure stands for the first attempt in learning, right? Which is great. How can entrepreneurs adopt that mindset in a world that often punishes mistakes?
Yeah. So, as an entrepreneur, and even as a human being, taking an even bigger perspective about this, every single day when you woke up, that's like a celebration. Awesome. But guess what? Not every single day you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get to the desk and get started on work. You're not, right? That might happen 1 out of 3 days. And let's just call it, it's actually called the rule of thirds. There will be the day when you're getting up and you're like, I can't wait to get to the desk. Those are the easy days when you're just like, hey, five, I'm pumped. I have ideas. And oh my gosh, I slept amazing. And whoa, here we go. What about that second, third? Those are the days when you're okay. So you may be taking your time a little bit longer, making your coffee, checking on social media. You're like, all right, so well, let's do this, right? The main category, that's the challenge when you're feeling it's a struggle. That's the third category when you're like, "Oof, I am so tired today and I don't even know really, right? But those are the days that build the character, where you build the resilience and the grit. If you show up on the days when you don't feel like showing up, then you're becoming an entrepreneur. Because the other two, those are easy. We can all do that. But on the days when you actually feel like you failed, you woke up, you had maybe a weird email or your technology doesn't work, or maybe what you did yesterday seemed like completely nonsense, or maybe didn't work at all. On that day when you show up, that's when you're going to see momentum is going to build because we could all say, you know what, I'm just not going to do this anymore. Well,
Yeah.
that's easy. And what kind of message are you sending to the world that you're just not going to get out of bed on that day? Not happening, right? So you're going to get up. You're like, well, I'm definitely a little tired. But then you sit down and you're like, all right. So that was my first attempt in learning. Well, it didn't work so well. So I'm just going to keep plugging along. And you could even, this is my suggestion to you because I do that too. I create like a list for the days when I'm like, maybe like, things that need to get done, but I don't have the full focus on that day. I have that list. And then I go back to it. Oh, that's true. I could always update these things from my list right there. Because otherwise you're like, well, I don't know what to do. I don't have this. I don't have that. I don't have the patience for this. Well, what am I going to do? Let's just scroll on social media. We're not going to do this. You're going to keep going, but you just need to choose an activity that is kind of adequate for that day. Let's maybe use that word, right? Because again, showing up on the great day, showing up on the okay day, we can all do that. That's the easy stuff. Showing up on the day when you're not feeling well, that is what builds your stamina, your grit, and your progress.
So you've taught entrepreneurship and you've lived entrepreneurship. You got a foot in both those worlds. What would you say is the greatest myth of entrepreneurship versus reality? What maybe you had a perception, maybe your students have a perception, maybe your friends and colleagues have a perception of what it's like to be an entrepreneur. What do they get wrong, and what's the other side of that? What are they? What would the right interpretation of what they get wrong be?
The main myth is that looking at somebody's day 100 is like, why am I not at that particular level? Or
Yeah.
year 10 and I'm just getting started. And the myth of being, I'm like behind. I'm always like, I will never get there. Well, no, you will, because it took them 10 years. And that's quite a long time, right? So the myth, it's just that frequently people don't look at the timeline that it takes to actually start a business, run a business, and sustain a business. And you only look at the end result. In reality, most entrepreneurs are going to tell you that the journey is really where the real transformation lies. It's amazing to have a company, but the way that you took to get there, all the little twists and turns and pivots, that's really where the magic is. So the myth is that people only want to get to the other side and as fast as possible. And they believe that, when somebody tells them on social media, well, if you just take my class right here within 30 days, you could make your first million. Do you really believe that? I mean, that's complete nonsense. And I'm not saying there are not people that are not successful with that. But what you really have to do in those 30 days might be completely impossible.
Yeah.
So how about you just look at the journey and then you worry about what will happen on the other side, right?
Yeah. I always look with a great deal of skepticism when I see people talking about a numerical number to success. So 3 easy steps. Well, there's 2 red flags there. The number 3 and the word easy, or 7 steps to happiness, or 12 steps to becoming a millionaire, or, billionaire, whatever the number is. And
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, there are formulas, obviously, that are best practices. One might call them a formula. But they're usually not, found on late night television in an infomercial. And one of my pet peeves is when I see people who are motivational speakers or business coaches or Tony Robbins type. And I'm not putting down Tony Robbins. I think he's done a good job overall compared to many of the others out there. But a lot of the times they are successful because you are buying their success. And you know, unless you become a business coach and create infomercials at 3 o'clock in the morning, that some of that advice is just not going to land on you. You know what I mean? It's their success is getting you to send them money. That's their success, and they're very good at it. Uh, selling their books, 21 Steps to Freedom, and whatever. I think the what I've discovered in business is if I focused on one thing, I would get that one thing at the expense of 10 things. And what I've learned is the best way to elevate all parts of your business, revenue, market share, profit, reputation, client satisfaction, whatever the KPI is all these things are not a result of chasing individually all these things. All these things, to me, are the result of good decisions. Good decisions provide an organic, authentic growth, organic, authentic reputation, organic, authentic cash flow that's perfectly appropriate for the scale of your business. I, many years ago, got my pilot's license, and I've said this to my frequent viewers and listeners. I apologize for the redundancy here, but every pilot, whether they're flying for Delta or flying around in a Cessna like I did, it's drummed into them by their flight instructors that the entire time you're in the cockpit, you need to do three things. Never stop doing these three things: aviate, navigate, and communicate. And most of the time, planes get into trouble. It's because the flight crew got distracted and they stopped doing one of those three. They were so intent on figuring out why a warning light is on, they stopped aviating. They hit a mountain, or they stopped communicating, or something. They didn't do all three. And I think there's a business equivalent to that too. That whatever the business equivalent is, aviate, navigate, communicate, you got to do all those things at the same time. You focus on one thing, you'll get it, but it's not going to be what you want. It's going to be like one of those jokes about a genie, granting your wish, and you didn't quite get, he interpreted your wish differently. It's almost like a punchline. Does that make sense? Is that your experience as well, Christiane?
I totally agree with you. And I think what's important too is that, like those three things, keeping them is nearly like how we lead our lives. Clearly, when you're an entrepreneur, it seems to be the most important thing, but you can't disregard your own mental and physical health and your family and whatever else you got going on. So you need to become the master of various skills, and you need to figure out really, all right, so what's my value in life? What do I really care about here? To keep my ship running, what is really something I really need to worry about? And I love that you brought up, there's no numerical value. Maybe there's four for you. Five.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Oh, there's not like 21. That seems incredibly tremendous. It's not even, I mean, it's don't even have enough fingers and toes for that.
But if you
So
buy the
maybe
second book,
21.
there's another 21.
So maybe not 21, but let's just say for you it's three, and maybe for me it's five. I mean,
Absolutely.
who knows what? I think you just need to figure out, all right, what's it really that at the end of my life, when I look back, I feel I did a good job in keeping that all in line with building my business and raising my children and being a role model for others. What is it really that I care about? Because the most important thing about doing this particular exercise is that you might notice that you focus on one thing too much versus another, or that you focus on things that are completely not aviate, navigate, communicate. And so you can let go of those. That's a really good thing too. You're like, maybe I shouldn't have said yes to all these activities. But you know what? There was never a moment in going back and saying, oh, you know what? Actually, I cannot do that because it's not part of my value system. And then I wish I could, but I just can't right now.
Yeah.
So what's most important is that you need to figure out your value. And actually, I do this with my students and in all my books. There's a value exercise where I present people with a list of values, and they're all amazing values. But you have to choose the one that's most important for you. I can't tell you what your value is.
Right.
You just go on with it. And I'd say pick three, and if you really struggle, by all means, pick five. But you always have to think when you make a decision. We talk about decision making. When you make a decision, go through that. Is it aligned with those three values that I chose? No, not here, not there, not there. Ooh. So I'm making a decision right now. It's not aligning with my values. Maybe I need to rethink this decision.
Yeah, absolutely. That goes back to something I learned a long time ago. Sometimes the most profitable word in business is no. We tend to, as entrepreneurs, want to take advantage of every opportunity, and every sale is a good sale. Every customer is a good customer. Every, decision needs to be made now, because we don't want to, we suffer FOMO, fear of missing out. So to your point, sometimes we just have to say, no, it sounds fun, but it doesn't, at least not now. It doesn't fit. I either need to change my values or I need to stand by my values, right? Whichever values I'm using at the time. We're a couple more questions. We're starting to run out of time, but I want to get these two in. For leaders and business owners who feel stuck or overwhelmed, what's one small step, a petite step
Mhm.
that they could take today to start creating momentum? How do they get that flywheel starting to turn?
Mm, Perfect. Well, you could certainly think, all right, what is a goal I want to accomplish in the new year? I mean, we are recording this at the end of the year.
Yep.
What are you grateful for from this year, and what do you want to accomplish next year? And those are big decisions, but at the same time, it forces you to do two things. A, you're taking a petite step back and you're reviewing what worked. And B, you're looking into the future. And that really, this exercise only works if you look both ways, right? It's like
Yeah.
kind of like looking on a mountain and you only look down. I mean, I also would like it to kind of look around a little
Sure.
bit. So don't just like, no, well, I came quite a long ways and ought to go back down, right? Don't think about it this way. Also think a little bit like, wow, this is an incredible view up here. So that's the perspective you have to take. That's your petite practice. Make yourself really that big goal. And it could be in da 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 in 2026. I want to accomplish this by doing that, and the people I serve are blah. You need to be as specific as possible. And I'm ending it with this in service of who, because I felt like when we started this conversation that frequently entrepreneurs, they miss the piece that we actually always serving, aren't we? Right? So who are you serving with your idea? I didn't quite, understand this. So all successful companies are very clear that they are serving and they are filling a pain point of somebody. And I think that's a very good petite practice you could take today.
Excellent. And finally, Christiana, how did you define success earlier in your life versus
Mhm.
how do you define it today?
Yeah. So in academia, publishing in high tier journals that are very challenging to get into, highly scientific journals, really developing models that show your expertise, the fact that you have a PhD, that you came from an acclaimed university, all that super successful. Now I look more as like, all right, so the whatever top 10%, top 1% in the world that actually reads those journals and understands what I actually publish. How about I look at Maslow's pyramid and I'm actually trying to satisfy the bottom layer of that pyramid instead of just going for the very top. How about we just start with the basics? How can I make people happier by meeting me? And how can I actually help them accomplish their goals? Which is why all my books are always like very action oriented, inspiring, and takeaway messages. How to accomplish your goals, step into your voice. That's really what defines success for me right now. I want to help others.
Well, thank you for helping others. Thank you for helping me and my audience get a fresh perspective and your perspective based on your journey. I really appreciate you being on the show, and thanks for educating me and bringing in some new, well-founded wisdom, Professor. I really appreciate it. For those in my audience that are watching this on YouTube, if you want to get more information on Dr. Christiane Schroeter's work, Petite Practice, look down here where it says Show More, and I'll have all the links relevant to that there. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, look on your podcast app, and that information will be there as well. Or look over her shoulder right now, and Vanna White here, showing you're modeling your own hardware there. That's very good. Yeah, don't drop it. She's got a nice collection of work that she's done, and I would highly recommend checking all that out. And by the time this airs, if you got someone the wrong Christmas gift and you want to make amends, then you can buy that book. It would be a great after the holidays book, something to read for the beginning first quarter of the year. So how's that? How's that for a holiday pitch, even though it's past the holidays?
Well, and then, of course, keep in mind that I truly showed entrepreneurial spirit in publishing these books on Amazon, especially the Petite Practice Planner that was probably not going to live on Amazon if I wouldn't have been the persistent self that I am. So if you're ever curious about publishing a book, creating a speech, getting to the TEDx stage, I'm definitely going to help you because I am that persistent person that will get you going.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you also do public speaking too. Is that right?
Yeah, I do. And that's definitely my favorite things.
Mine too. I enjoy it. You're never, but what I like to say is you're never a prophet in your own home. So I have to travel far and wide to get anyone interested in hearing what I have to say, because my family's heard it all before. They're not interested anymore. They're like, shut up, Dad. Shut up, Mike. So I do enjoy the art of public speaking. I get more out of it than I think my audience gets, and I hope they get something out of it, but I enjoy it as well. I think entrepreneurs are in the same category as comedians and musicians and actors. I think we are performers in some way, and we're selling ourselves, we're selling our values, we're selling our products, we're selling our ideas, and we also are sometimes rule breakers. We don't necessarily follow traditional expected norms. When Amazon says you can't use a trademark in the title, we will fight that because we look at the spirit of something versus the rule of law, and which makes us successful. When it makes us successful, it also makes us very frustrating to work with. If your boss is an entrepreneur, if you're working directly for the founder, it's going to be a journey because we just kind of sometimes not interested in the detail. We're always chasing this shiny object in the corner, and we need a good team around us, and grounded people who can make it happen or kill our projects before we go on to something else. Well, Christiane, thank you so much. I know this is, by the time this airs, the holidays will already occurred, but the happiest of holidays, Happy New Year, continued success, and I look forward to seeing even more books coming out of your library there.
Thank you so much, audience. Let me know if you have any questions and stay in touch.
Well, that's a wrap. Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Reluctant Entrepreneur Podcast. A very special thanks to Dr. Christiane Schroeter for being my guest on the show. We've been so busy recording future episodes with fascinating guests, so be sure to subscribe to get notified when new episodes drop. And one personal favor, if you're watching this on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe. Those two simple clicks really help us expand our reach. If you're an entrepreneur or know someone who would make a great guest, I'd love to hear from you. Visit reluctantentrepreneur.podcast.com to apply or recommend a guest. You can also reach me directly at mike@reluctantentrepreneur.podcast.com. And once again, a very quick shameless plug. If you're interested in my book, The Reluctant Entrepreneur, Anatomy of a Business Startup from Uncertainty to Unstoppable, it's available in paperback and Kindle on Amazon and as an audiobook on both Audible and Amazon. Thank you so much again for listening or watching. Until next time, be unstoppable.